I do.
Recording in progress, so that's a good sign, isn't it? Okay, let's bow in. Evening, one and all. So it seems to me that in the last week or so, I seem to have said to a number of people on a number of occasions, just take a breath. Just take a breath. And over the series that we've been doing this, and earlier when we were doing it with Piers, Demetra, I think we all realized how important breath is.
Yes.
It's kind of a core of life, isn't it? It absolutely is fundamental. You can not eat for weeks and survive. You can not drink for a few days and survive, but don't breathe for a few minutes and you're kind of out of here. So it's pretty vital to our lives. So I thought we'd do a centering today that just focused on breath. Nothing complex, but just focused on breath. So sit, stand, kneel, just wherever you're comfortable, find that place. And then you can shut your eyes or not as you like. And then just start to breathe. Just listen to my voice and start to breathe. And notice what's happening to your breath. Maybe it's lengthening. Maybe it's not. But just focus on the rhythm. Is there a pause between the in-breath and the out-breath? And as you breathe, what's happening elsewhere in your body? So start to scan the rest of your body. Maybe work from your face down. So what's happening to your facial muscles and your forehead? What's happening in your shoulders? How do your arms feel as you just breathe? And what about your seat bones? And your thighs? And your calves? And where your feet are contacting the ground. What are you noticing that you did not pay attention to before? What's going on in your mind? Is it beginning to still, or is there still lots of noise? And now just take 30 seconds, complete silence, to just enjoy your breath. Okay. And in your own time, if you can come back to me. So a little bit of feedback on what you noticed. In particular, where are you at now compared to where you were before we started doing this? Who wants to kick off? Go, Dimitri.
Well, in a few seconds, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, that we were the mind and the body is a lot more silent. There's more inner stillness and silence. And one notices that the more still and silent you become, the breath becomes subtler and subtler inside. Really subtle, very small and subtle. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great start. Anybody else? Vitali.
What I want to say is, like when you pay attention to your breath, it starts interfering with all what was going on in your mind. And it's like kind of for the first period, for some minutes, I would say it's kind of a struggle inside of your mind. Breath, when you paying attention to breath, is giving you a rhythm, and you are trying to calm down, but your thoughts are trying to come back and interfere with this calmness.
Okay, cool. Patrick?
For me, similar to what Vitally said in the beginning, and then as he got deeper, just more and more calmness inside my body and in my mind as a unit. So I felt really calm and peaceful.
So hands up if you felt better at the end of it than you did at the beginning. I can't see your hand, Derek, but I'm gonna assume it's up in the air. Okay,
Yes,
Joe, what did you notice?
I got really focused. It was a silent breath. I didn't hear any sound of inhale or exhale. So become like a void inside. It felt good, and it still is a little.
Good. Okay.
So on that, I don't know.
Great. Karen, how did you find it?
Well, for me, it's like getting calming down out of all the hassle and bustle of every day, and getting ready to get ready for the training for me.
Perfect. Okay. Any other comments before we move on? Finn, do you want to offer anything?
I felt a lot lighter,
Great.
you know, so which I would normally do anyway, when even on the mat, I still get the same way, you know.
So do you mean lighter in mood or lighter in your energy, or what exactly?
All aspects come together and become lighter. If you've got something that isn't light, all the rest don't join in. So you've got to bring the whole thing together.
Okay. Do we also mean lighter as in brighter?
I mean,
on that.
I think light in movement and everything, really. The whole, or.
So that's fine. So Finn, whenever I ask you to talk, someone always cuts across you. So now's your chance. They don't do it on purpose.
Such presence. No, I noticed at first it was noticed all bubbling up, everything all the noise that I'd been kind of suppressing for the rest of the day, or all the noise of the day bubbled up, so it wasn't an instantly calming thing to do. But then spending time with it and allowing that, and then it became more sort of centered after that. So it took time. Yeah.
I think one of the things is there's no instruction not to accept whatever's going on. So if there's noise, there's noise. And if it starts to disappear, then it starts to disappear. And probably it does if you don't try and push it away. if you just accept it and allow it to happen, then things begin to settle. The breathing's like chucking the stone on the water. You want to wait for the ripples to calm down. You won't find it instantly. It's a process of settling and settling. And the more you breathe, the calmer the pond becomes, I believe. Okay, so it's a nice feeling just to feel that calmness, that stillness. Karen, you said it nicely. You said it prepared me for the lesson. So
Yes.
in what way, if you were doing this before an ordinary Aikido lesson,
Yeah.
in what way would you feel better equipped to handle the lesson?
It would calm me down, forget all the hassle of what had happened in the day, and get me focused on what was going to happen in the lesson with the sensei.
Right. So, firstly, it clears your mind to receive the information you're going to get in a much better way than you otherwise would have, not just from the teacher, but from your practice partners as well. Everybody's giving you a teaching opportunity, and if your mind is noisy, then you're missing a lot of stuff that you would otherwise find if things were a little bit quieter and you were able to take that information on board. So the breathing takes us to a very centered place. So remember, my definition of being centered is being in the place that gives you the clearest sight of whatever is going on at any particular point in time. It allows you to receive as much information as you're capable of receiving and is being offered, and therefore allows you to make better decisions in what happens next. Yeah, so it's much more likely that you come up with the right outcomes. That's what it does. So we're going to spend some time not doing anything particularly complex, but we're going to try and keep that feeling of being centered and just doing a few simple exercises where we try to notice when we stop being centered, right? So let's say we start with Ikkyo Undo. When's your body going to say to you, don't lift my arms anymore? I'm beginning to feel my shoulders. Or don't move so vigorously forward. Don't you feel that your back foot's leaving the ground or your front toes are lifting up? I want you to pay attention to what your body's telling you. So we begin to fine tune what's really centered, what's a position where we can operate here, but we're not able to give our maximum efficiency, and what's just daft. And then maybe later you can reflect on what's been your habit to date and use this skill to apply it to every movement that you do. Am I feeling really calm and centered and efficient, or am I feeling I'm working at the edge of my universe, or have I just stepped beyond where I'm capable of I should be going? Yeah. All right. So let's start with Ikkyo Undo, because we all know what that is. Okay, and let's not do the arms to start with. Let's just rock back and forwards. Left foot forward first. And notice if you go too far, what starts to happen to your back. So if I go too far forward and my back is now a bit sloped, I feel a great deal of pressure on the front leg, not so much on the back leg. These thigh muscles are working really hard, and it's uncomfortable. And I know that if I push from behind, I'm not very stable. If I just come back a bit, that's about right. Okay. Now I feel like I don't have to do much work to do this. I keep my back straight, and I watch my knee. If I let it pass my big toe, again, I can feel my thigh muscles start to do things that they weren't doing before. I've lost a little bit of contact with my back leg, and I can do this, but it's not very comfortable. So I'm just going to come back a bit. And when I come back, so I can just about see the end of my big toe, I feel better. So there's a range there. If I go back too far, So again, there's a slope on my back. I can do this, but I know if I'm pushed, I'm not as stable. There's a great deal of weight in the back leg, not so much on the front leg. And these muscles, the back thigh and the muscles behind are working really hard. But if I come back to stretch, all that stress disappears. So I just want you to explore in your own body, what's the movement you can do and always feel like, whoa, this is good, I'm comfy, I'm in the zone here. There's a zone of comfort. Experience the extreme, and then maybe just notice when you, so I gave you a point, and your front knee is over, if you go much further than your end of your big toes, you can't see it. That small difference, only maybe an inch beyond. How does that change your body? Are things starting to kick in now that weren't there before when you came an inch back? So this is your own exploration. And you can change legs if you like. But just to feel where you feel good. Maybe change a variable. Maybe make your legs wider as you do this. How do you feel now? Is that where you want to be? You've got a more firm base because you've got a wider base. But does it actually feel operationally very good? If not, why not? Now let's give ourselves a really narrow base. What about that? How do we feel about that? So what's the right distance then? So we've given ourselves an extreme of very wide, very narrow. Where is your body telling you it wants to go to feel like you've got the most options? All right. So let's just have a bit of feedback on that. What did you discover? Was there anything there that you didn't know before? That you weren't paying attention to before?
I discovered something that I was moving forward and backward from my knees.
Right.
It's a very common response on me, but I'm trying to shift for my center, which is kind of new. But when I moved with the knee, I said, "Oh, I know that place that moved from my knee. That's not good at all."
Okay, so you reminded yourself that you wanted to move from your hips or your center and not from your knees.
Yeah.
And it felt better when you did that. Great, good. That's worth paying attention to. By the way, how do we make sure, how do we kind of train our body to move from where we want it to? So if we want to do it from move from the center, I'm going to literally grab my hips and push them forward and pull them back and push it forward and pull them back, just so I get used to having my focus on that point. Obviously, after a while, you don't need to do that, but it helps you initiate the movement from your hips as opposed to anywhere else. And that's a variable you can play with. So if you're not understanding what Joe's talking about, focus on moving from your knees or focus on moving from your shoulders and compare it to what it feels like when you move from your hips. And it's up to you to decide what's the most efficient, not me. You've got to have that inner voice that's saying, "Oh yeah, I like this a bit better," or "No, I hate that." Yeah. Any other observations?
If you go too far, you're going to fall over.
Yeah.
And it also the other way. And because you're moving from your knees, the next stage is when you have an attack, you can slide through much easier because you're used to the movement.
Yeah. What did you notice when you varied the width of your stance? Finn?
Yeah, that was really interesting for me. It seems obvious, but actually to experience it again, just to be reminded of how unstable you are when you're narrow, or how exaggerated and how unstable in another way you are when you're overextending. But how often that, how I just made me think of when you're trying to be centered, there's the danger that you sort of become so narrow or so exaggerated that you actually become uncentered, even though you're trying to be centered in one way.
Yeah. So if you go too narrow, it's like standing on a pinhead. You know, that sort of, you're standing on the point of the triangle as opposed to the base of the pyramid, and that's not a very stable position. And if you go too wide, it's okay, but it's like, I can't move. You know, it's going to take you so long to take the next step. And that's where Karen's point comes in. If you need to move forwards or backwards or sideways, you need to have those options readily available to you. And if you've overextended or just haven't done enough with your body, then you're not in a position to do that very well or efficiently. Any other observations? Okay, so let's now just do the arm movement. When I come sideways on, my hands start by my side. You'll notice, if you pay attention, that they're slightly in front of me. They're not to the back. They're not on my arse. They're not even on the spine of my body. I just let them dangle and let them swing until they stop. They're actually slightly in front of my body. If I want them to the side of my body, I actually have to use muscles to put them there. So I'm doing some work that I don't need to do. I'm not being as efficient as I could be. So this is your starting position. And we're not going to do anything with the legs. And you're going to raise your arms up slowly. And where do you want to stop? How high has it reached? What's going on with your shoulders now? And everything else for that matter. Now let's take it higher. What would you begin to notice happening? Can I do this? Absolutely, I can do this. Do I want to? Is there more effort involved? Yes, there is. So when I'm doing Ikyo-Ondo, I start to listen to my body. Where is it telling me to stop? How can I extend my power forward efficiently and let it flow without the interference of my inner body saying, I don't like this as well. I've gone too far. That's too far. This is not enough. I can't really give you full whack here. It's only 40 miles an hour instead of 60. You start to listen to your inner voice. It becomes very crisp and effortless. There's a definite place where you stop at the top and a definite place where you stop at the bottom. And I can extend power fully out and fully down. Fully out and fully down. What happens if I stretch out? How does that feel? I just try to reach as far as I can. You know how it feels for me. I'm hoping you're going to tell me the same thing when you come back. Okay, so I am going to ask you to come back. What did you find? Anyone's feedback first? Before I pick on someone?
Yeah.
Well,
I found,
if we focus on purely extending our energy, then the shoulders do not interfere.
Correct.
The shoulders can remain calm.
Right.
Because the focus is not there, and that's very good. It's very relaxing for the body. No tension at all.
Any other observations? Joe, did you have one?
yes, I noticed something that when I do too much to one side, I do more effort on the opposite side, and I actually I lose my balance on the other side. So when I raise too much to the high going forward,
Yeah.
I lose my balance backwards.
Okay.
I don't know, too much. When I come back my arms backwards, I lose my balance towards. So
Okay. So did anyone find that maybe the range of movement that they were doing when they were doing it slowly and starting to pay attention was maybe not as much as they do when you're doing this in a very excitable way at the start of class when everyone's being very vigorous? Because often you find that when people get excited, they go beyond their boundaries. But it's all happening so fast that they don't bother to pay any attention. Yeah? You need to stay calm and focused. You need to do that at high speed and low speed. It shouldn't make any difference. You can't afford to be any less efficient a driver when you're driving at 60 miles an hour as when you're driving at 20. You've got to be able to know what it feels like to be in control of the car. So you need to know when you're oversteering or you know, the tires need changing or something like that. Vitaly, did you have something you wanted to add? Or not? Vitaly, did you have something? I just thought maybe you did.
You're speaking about me?
I just thought you were going to offer something, but if you haven't, that's fine.
Yeah, I always have something to add. at least I'm trying to. So anyway, I want to say that whenever I do moves, but I don't do a lot of moves, but whenever I do, I always have to keep control on that. And whenever I do it from not my my horror, I always get some problems with doing that moving. And whenever I just have to feel that before I do any move, and I have to see where I'm moving and control it all the time.
Yeah.
So it's
so you pay a great deal of attention to being able to drive the car and be fully in control of the car.
Yeah, definitely. And whenever we do or any other movements, being seated in a wheelchair,
yep.
We always all try at least to initiate all the move from your heart.
Yes.
And then it goes really smooth and fine. Whenever I switch on shoulders, because it happens a lot of time because you're in a wheelchair and you're limited with your moving.
Yep.
So then I got troubles.
Yeah. Okay. Karen, for your information, Vitaly's got MS and spends a lot of his time in a wheelchair. So
yeah,
you know, he really.
Yeah, my mum had MS, so yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So guess what? We're going to put arms and legs together now for complex stuff like you've never done this before. Let's give it a go. And start slowly, right? Start slowly where you're managing to maintain this lovely centered movement where you're totally in control of the car. And then you're going to build up the speed and you're going to build up the energy, but only to the point where you feel totally in control of the car. And then in your own time, you can practice maybe going faster and faster and faster, but always feeling in control of the car. In your own time. Really extend your mind forwards and down when you drop your hands. Be aware of how that changes the feeling when you're focusing forwards and focusing down. And maybe change feet if you haven't done so. So maybe switch your mind off and don't think about anything in particular. How does that change the feeling of this movement compared when you pick a point out in front of you and focus your technique on that? And if you've got all that sorted, try it with movement. Do a big step forward, a slide step forward, a big slide step back. Can you still feel in control? How does it feel when you let rip a bit? Doesn't it feel good when you really kind of give your whole self to the exercise and you still feel in control? So I'm reporting back how it feels for me now, because that is how it feels. I kind of love the intensity of building that power out and really letting it rip. But what about you?
My own common sense, eh?
You certainly may, Steve.
If you, this is to do with control and how you move. Now, when you're working a guide dog, the outside of the guide dog handle is longer than the inside. Now, the idea is that the dog then have to come into your center to work it. So the dog then has to use their center to take you across the line or keep you on the line. If the harness is straight, you walk into the dog all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what, Steve? I don't know how long I've known you, but it's just occurred to me that you have a really unfair advantage over us because you have to work in perfect partnership with that dog all the time. So you have to turn two into one all the time to get about the world. And most of us have to do it just on our own. So we don't know what it is to sort of kind of blend with another entity, a dog in this case, and work together as a team in the same way that you do. So thank you for that. That's a great thing.
And yet the other point is that when I was learning Aikido in the early days with Tamara, he always said, imagine you have a circle on the floor and then you have one clock hand going in the middle of it outwards. And as you move, the circle moves, so the hand has to keep your center so it moves with that circle. If it doesn't, then you're off-centered.
Yeah, good.
So that's how you train with a guide dog, by keep going different directions and different ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a brilliant way of practicing. The dog's got a sense where you're at today and how fast he can go, and you've got a sense where the dog is. It's a great exercise. Okay, other findings from other people. Karen.
Yeah, for me, we were told it as a triangle, step to the side like a triangle. So keep to the centre, but kept to like a triangle angle. So if when there was an attack, we step to the side.
Yeah. Well, if we talk for long enough about any movement in Aikido, we'll always come up with triangles, circles, and squares. If we look for them in the movement, they're always there. And I think the point here is to really be thinking about not so much the shapes we're making, because all of those elements will be there, but do we feel perfectly aligned with our triangle, our circle, and our square? What's going on within us? So here, this session is very much about you looking within rather than looking without. And even when you're looking out, to have half an eye on what's going on inside and paying attention to that, so that you can adjust what you're doing and do it better next time. Any other observations or thoughts? Okay, right. Well, let's do Sayo under then. Same faces. This is the sideways exercise. Okay, so where do you want to put your feet? Okay. Try going to an extreme. Would you want to be doing it from there? And the answer in my case is no, thank you very much. You can make your own decisions. What about if I put my feet right side by side? Do I really want to do it from here either? No, I don't love this. I can do it, but I don't love it. Where do I want to put my feet? And I let my body tell me where to put my feet. That might sound a bit weird, but hopefully you're all experiencing that just kind of inner knowledge of here's the place where I feel really grounded. And this is one of the triangles, Karen. This triangular shape is a great base from which to operate. Right, now I'm going to rock from side to side. Now I'm standing on a line. I want my hips to be parallel to that line at all times. So I don't want any corkscrewing. I don't want to be looking where I'm leaning. I just want to rock from side to side. And what happens if I rock too far one way? How does that feel? What happens if I only do a little movement? It's not uncomfortable. But is that a position from which I have a full expression of power? Again, I know what the answer is for me, but what about for you? So where's the place you want to go that allows you to fully feel you're engaging the body in the right way? Great. Now introduce your arms. Your arms, I'm going to just stop my feet for a second. Remember, my hands are slightly in front of you. So the one that's coming across my body will come to this position. Maybe this position, actually. There. How did I know that this was the position? Because my body was telling me that's too far away. You've gone too far across your center, and now I can feel a pull on my shoulder. There's just ground. This arm does one other thing. As well as lifting, it opens up. So the palm faces the heavens. How high do I go? Listen to your body. What's it telling you? I can lift it higher, but am I having to engage muscles and work harder to do this? Yes, I am. So where does your body say stop? It's like I think your body is handling. Ikyoando will tell you where, sorry, not Ikyoando, your inner mind and body will tell you what feels nice and what feels like you're starting to put strain in. You always want to be operating from a place where minimum effort, maximum efficiency. Okay, so when you're comfortable with that, now we introduce the legs as well. Notice that the bit that's the throw, my arm never does this. I'm not whacking them in the face. I'm dropping my center onto my partner. If I were doing this with a partner, I would make sure that when I attempted this move, I finished right next to the chair. Boom. I would never do it with this gap between us. I hope you can see the gap between us. Why I've just given this chair a life, I'm not quite sure. But I hope you get the point. When I'm doing my Aikido, which may not be your Aikido, you can always judge for yourself. If I can touch a bit of my partner's body without interfering with the technique, then I will. So on this particular exercise, my hip will be against their hip. My arm will be resting on their chest fully. They'll be supporting it, and then the weight's going to go right down through them. Whatever seems appropriate to be connected with, then I'm going to connect with it. Does that make sense? So if I grab someone's wrist, then there's only one point of connection that I'm going to extend with. But if somebody's grabbed my wrist, then I want to get right by their side so that my arm is kind of aligned with their arm, my shoulder's next to their shoulder, my hips are next to their hips, etc., etc. The more touch there is, the better the connection, the more powerful your ability to move with this person. Move with notice, not to make the other person move. As soon as you have that mindset, you're then doing something to them. And when you're doing it, you're no longer doing Aikido, because it's not us, it's you and them. All right, so let's get back to that Sayo one. Again, find your initial starting place. 1, settle, come back to the center, settle. Come back to the center, settle. So as your arms going up, you're coming back to the center, and then you're settling. Imagine the contact of another body next to you. Now we can turn this maybe not exactly the same as Sayana, but we can imagine this is blue. So I'm offering, the person takes my wrist, and then it comes to my center, up and back out to them. So they grab it, they're trying to push in, I let that happen. So as it reaches my center, it rises up, and then the wave crushes back down on me. And I wouldn't be looking at you as I am now, I would be looking out front. Then you can do it the other way. Oh. And then you can start to make the circle smaller. So in your mind, it's still this huge, great washing machine type cycle. But the movement becomes smaller, smaller, smaller. In the mind, it's still the big circle. The wave crashing on top of them, but the physical movement becomes much smaller. So in the end, it almost appears like you're striking to their throat. But it's the same feeling of bound, the same feeling of connection. When you do it that fast, people better start rolling backwards before they get anywhere near grabbing your wrist. Because otherwise they're just going to run off with their little arm. Finn, did you have a point?
Just I'm amused at a profound or spurious observation, but thinking back to what Steve said about the clock. So when I was bringing that in, I was thinking at the center of the clock there is, there's infinite time, but it's when we learn, we sort of think about this laborious edge of the clock face and about bringing it into the center, and yeah, it's amusing.
So of those of you who have done Aikido, I bet when you first started, you start with very big movements, don't you? Yeah, the techniques are made into very big shapes, and your teacher makes it really clear that you're going to walk round in a circle and you touch the ground and you reach for the sky. And then as you get on with it, the movements get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you watch some of the masters and there doesn't appear to be much movement at all. But they still do
any at all.
Say that again, Karen.
Any at all. It's like a little quick flick or something.
Yeah,
it's so...
and it's even more powerful than what looks like it's a really obvious, powerful move.
Yeah.
Okay. So any observations? I'll tell you one thing you can play with. What was your head doing? Was it always looking to the front as you did this? Or were you turning it? And as you turned it, maybe your shoulders turned a bit. And guess what? If your shoulders turned a bit, then so did your hips turn a bit. So if that was happening at all, you didn't have it right. This part of the body, your core, should be still. There's just the sideways movement. And the up and down movement, which is more an expression of what's going on in your head than in your body. Gosh, I didn't realize it was that time. So apologies, I've gone over a bit. Any final closing thoughts?
Yeah, that was a good session. I enjoyed it.
Great, thank you, Karen. Just met Karen today, so I'm really pleased that you showed up. Right, so what we'll do, I think, is why don't we close with a little bit of breathing again? So just in your own time, relax, shut your eyes if you want to, and just pay attention to your breathing. Okay, so I'm going to make a small wager that it took you far less time to settle your mind that time than it did at the beginning of the class. And the final comment is that what we did were two really simple movements that all of you will have done in your time loads and loads and loads of times on the mat. But the idea that I'm trying to get you to pay attention to what centered movement means, you can apply it to anything you like. Maybe it's just walking along the high street. Maybe it's sweeping the porch or vacuuming the inside of your house or picking up a cup of coffee. Pay attention. How could you do it with more ease and more efficiency? So you can practice whatever you like in technique within Aikido or just in the simple things you're doing every day, and pay attention and it'll teach you something. You'll notice how your body really works. And if you know how your body works when you're doing stuff off the mat, guess what? It works the same way when you're on the mat. So I don't mind whether you notice it on the mat or off the mat. It's the same rule. And with that lovely thought, I will leave you. So thanks ever so much for showing up, everybody. Have a great week and maybe on Thursday. All right.
Aikido 24/7, right?
Thanks.
Aikido 24/7, always, Vitaly. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.